All right, so we are in Romans 12. We're going to finish that chapter tonight, Lord willing, unless something happens. And I want to thank you all again for coming because Romans is one of my favorite books to teach, and I try to prepare well for them, and you all attend very well, so I appreciate that. It's encouraging to me, and so I mean that a lot. So when we look at Romans 12, of course, we're in this section that we talk about the application because it's been doctrinal, to use that term. And that's the first section of the book all the way through chapter 11. But it's all about all the great things God has done for us. And again, we're saved by God's grace through our faith. And if you go away thinking, I didn't deserve any of that, the answer is what? That's right. And that's what makes us to glorify God, and just feel so thankful. And because of that, he says in chapter 12, therefore, considering the mercies of God, what he's done for you, here's the least you can do in return. And what is the least? Present your whole self as a living sacrifice. Just give God everything you've got, because isn't that what he did for us? All right. And so with that thought, when we think about what God did for us, now we're going to look in a practical way what he wants us to do for others. And a lot of the times the pushback is, I don't want to, they don't deserve it, they're mean to me, they're not nice, and why should I? And everything you push back on is what God could have said about you. You didn't deserve it, you were mean to him, you weren't very nice, but he still saved you. Does that make sense? And so go ahead and fire away at all the reasons why you don't want to do these things, because the answer would be, yeah, but that's what God did for you. And so we can do it for others. That's part of being a living sacrifice. So that's the section we are in. After this, we'll look at how we're supposed to respond to government. But we're looking at these four relationships. Already it's to God. Present ourselves as a living sacrifice. Then to one another, and then our relationship with the world. They're all living sacrifices, a transformed life. We're not living like the world does anymore. We're living like Christ lived on this earth. And that takes a lot of transformation by the renewing of our mind. We have new norms, new values, and so it'll show up in our behavior. And then, Lord willing, next week we'll look at how we're to relate to government, and you probably get a lot of arguments there, but the Bible's pretty clear about what to do. All right, so we're in verse 9. Let's read that, and maybe we'll just read the whole chapter, the rest of the chapter, so we can then talk about it. Romans 12, verse 9. Let love be without hypocrisy. That infers what?
Don't say something.
No, but what does that infer, though? There could be a lot of hypocritical love. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
My Bible says
Sincere, okay. Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Give preference to one another in honor, not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, persevering in tribulation, devoted to prayer, contributing to the needs of the saints, practicing hospitality. Now, it looks like it's just a string of all these pearls of all these things to do, but I want you to see that these are characteristics of God, all of them. And he says, that's what I want you to have in your life, the same characteristics of God as you're living now a transformed life. And you say, well, no one else does this in the world. That's the point. You're going to, because you're a shining light in this dark, dark world. And if we're going to make a difference, we have to live like Christ lived for us, right? So let's look at all these things, okay? And we'll break them down verse by verse. First, let love be without hypocrisy. The word in hypocrisy in the Greek literally means a play actor. So you get on a stage, and what are you doing? You're playing a role, a character that is really not you. And you're faking it, right? Now, on the stage, is that okay? But when you transfer that to normal life, it's not okay. We call it, you're acting one way, but really you're not that person. You're a hypocrite. That's all as a negative thing. Now, I heard someone talk about a relative this last week, and said, man, my mother didn't like her because she thought she was just a fake. You ever anyone like that? He seems so loving and kind, but you can tell this is just a put on, all right? You just know it. Jeff, why are you smiling? It wasn't you. But you've met someone like that, huh? And I say that because God's acknowledging that happens. Some people, they fake their love. And they might even do things, but it's done with an intention to gain some kind of control over you even. Yes?
I think we saw a lot of that as far as real faith that was in Christ and those who were dedicated to him during the COVID era.
Yeah.
Because many left and didn't come back.
Yeah?
And so were they really being faithful and true to God? Or are they?
And maybe that's the word devoted coming up. You're right. Yeah, they kind of wilted. Some people did. That's right. So in other words, let your love be genuine. And I think you know when it's genuine, right? And so he says, do that. Now, this next one, abhor, means just have a horrible, oh, that's terrible. Abhor what is evil. All right, so we don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that, but it seems like things are backwards. That which is evil is gloried in. People, oh man, that's just, no, it's disgusting. And you have to abhor it. But can we become numb to the world around us and that we kind of just embrace evil? Can I use you as an example, Ann? She watches a few K-dramas, Korean dramas. And they're all very clean. Then she was trying to watch this American movie, and every other word was a cuss word or using God's name in vain. She had to shut it off for 4 minutes. Is it easy to sit through and watch that and not react? No. It can be.
If you're desensitized.
We have to develop an attitude that we abhor it. The second thing I have to point out, there is evil in the world. Because the narrative now is, no, it's just bad upbringing. And it's just because their family life wasn't good. They didn't have good nurturing, and they're not really evil, and there is not evil in the world. No, he says abhor what? Evil. There is evil in the world, and you have to hate it, because God hates it. Doesn't mean you necessarily hate the person. Don't get me wrong. But you got to hate evil for what it is. Jeff? Yes.
And those are just framing techniques
Yes.
to voice evil upon us, and you can't have the discernment unless you're in the Word of God to use the discernment.
I appreciate you saying that because, progressive, did you hear that versus being conservative? Conservative means you're stuck in the old ways that are no longer relative. No, it's not really about being conservative. I just want to be honest and faithful to what is true and good. And don't label me. And so when you refuse to give someone their preferred pronouns, well, you're not being kind. See, you're made to feel guilty and bad. No, what they're doing is wrong and destructive to society. Just because this person wants to be a woman or wants to be a cat, which happens, and I don't use their preferred pronoun, doesn't make me evil. Don't you judge my heart because you're calling me evil now, right? They turn the table so quickly. We have to learn to whore what is evil and then cling to what? So there's good out there too. It's light and darkness. Right? Yes, Julie.
So, I've said it a lot, that my language, it can be a real weakness for me, especially if I get angry. And,
I have 2 words for you. That's right. Stop it. That's because they do that's a joke for people. Okay, go ahead.
no, if you, like, when I was working at horse trailer place
Yes.
the other day, there were, the young kids in that office, their language
Oh, yeah.
was hideous.
Yeah.
And when I went to work there, I didn't think I could do it, so I just thought,
Yeah.
I gotta do something about this, because it literally was affecting me.
So what'd you do?
I just started saying, that's really not acceptable in public,
Good.
in the public. And
Just-
I said, it's really offensive to me.
So kindly make your voice heard. Did it make a difference?
It made a big,
There you go.
but it took time.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you know, it really makes a difference if you do say something.
We have to.
Thinking about it,
We have to.
if I hadn't said anything, I couldn't work this.
Yeah. Remember when Jesus turned over the money tables? Because what they're doing was abhorring to him. It was so evil. They're taking God's holy place and make it a place of commerce, and they're cheating people with their high exchange rates on their money. And just, he was furious. He said, zeal for my house consumed me, you know? And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about being mean and jerks, because you've got to show what? Love without hypocrisy, but at the same time, you got to hate evil and cling to what is good. That's hard, but it's a transformed life. It's a new person. We have to redefine what is evil and good sometimes in our minds. Marvin, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. What I was just going to mention is I've noticed, like in the last few months, 6 months, that you Google something that you think is good and it ends up not being good. Or
Yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah,
either about homosexuality or
yeah,
whatever, that just pops up on it without
yeah.
that you're trying to find something good.
And what's crazy is for clinging to what is good, we're the one that's laid with evil. It's so backwards. But don't let that get you. Just still be kind, but be firm. Yes.
I'm trying to find the passage, I can't get it right now, but the Bible speaks with regards to in the latter days, they will call what is good evil and what is
Yeah.
evil good. We are in those
Yeah.
days, and we can see it out
Yeah.
around us.
That's out of Isaiah. So, yeah. And being deceived, this get more deceived, it says too in the New Testament. So look at this. The word cling is actually the word when God joined man and woman together, a husband and wife. They're actually glued together is the word. And that's why Jesus said, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Because when you're glued together and become one, when you separate it, you kill them both. And that's why marriage and divorce is so terrible. Here's the same thing, is you just glue yourself to goodness. Surround yourself with it. And it'll change your life too. All right? Very good. All right. Then he says, be devoted to one another in brotherly love. This is interesting. This is about our relationship again to one another, an example we set, and then we're going to look at our relationship to the world in a second. But the word devoted literally means to lead. You know, it's your priority. There's two interesting words. The word devoted, what does your Bible say instead of devoted? We're in verse 10 of chapter 12. Be kindly affectionate to one another in brotherly love. Or family affection. That's why I have this word. There's two words here. Philadelphia, which we recognize is the city of brotherly love. It's a Greek word, means brotherly love. That's the red word. The black word devoted, it's actually a philostorgos, which is the definition here. This is the strong, natural love you have for children, family. That's how it just happens naturally, and the tenderness that goes with it, because you're my daughter, you're my son. I'll die for you. He says, love one another like that with brotherly love. So he uses two words, puts them together, and the point is, we're family. And there should be kindness and tenderness that we show to each other. Sometimes we're firm, but we're not nasty to each other, and we're not rude. We learn tact, but sometimes it's interesting. A brother and sister could be the worst enemies, but then hug each other afterwards, right? I don't know, something about family can do that. And if you can learn that in a church, that you can do this, but then hug each other in love, then we're okay. But it takes a while to get there, doesn't it? And we have to go out of our way to be kind. All right, and forgiving, and compassionate, and patient. All right, so when we look at these things, give preference, he says, to one another. This word literally means to lead the way. In other words, what is your priority in life? What is your number one goal? Well, here my preference is you, your interests, your needs. Now that's just interesting, because we live in a society, it's all about what? Me. Me, what do I want to do today? What do I want? All the fast food, have it your way, right? And you deserve a break today. It's all about me, me, me. Your phone's me, me, me. Huh? I. iPhone, right. It's not a you phone, it's an iPhone. That's right. Okay. But when we give preference to another, that's a total reversal. And then this was a pushback like, well, what are they going to do for me? No, what did Jesus do for you? He put you first. Right? And so the scripture I love here is Philippians 2. He says, do nothing from selfishness. What does that leave out? Nothing. Nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, like I deserve it, I'm better than you. But with humility in mind, regard one another as more important than yourself. Now let's explain that by the next verse. Don't merely look out for your own personal needs or interests. Does that mean you can't look out for yourself? No, but more importantly, look out for the interests of others. That's how I regard you as more important than me, because my needs are taken care of. How can I say that? If I understand the grace of God in my life, if I seek ye first, all these things will be added. Do I have a thing to worry about in this life? No. Now, if we really believe that, I can forget thinking about myself because I've got it made, and I can start now thinking about you. And this is when the pushback. Well, you don't deserve it. You're not very nice. Well, the next verse, in verse 5, it says, have this attitude in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. He regarded our needs as more important than his own. And that's why we're here. He was rich, became poor for our sake, that through his poverty we might become rich, right? Yes. So someone had their hand up. I talked right over you. Who? Clinton. No, I had to finish my little monologue. Go ahead. That's why I'm called the teacher. Yeah, good.
That's the next verse.
All right. Yeah, good. So we can do this giving preference to one another. And then the next thing he goes on, he says, not lagging behind. And these, again, are all characteristics of Christ and how he lived on this earth and of our God then actually in heaven. Not lagging behind in diligence, but being fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. The word lagging just means lazy. Yeah, I'll get to it. Have you ever got a honey-do list and you never crossed things off for the last month or two? Well, that's because you're lagging behind. Yeah, I won't say unwilling to act or you got a reluctant attitude or you're a slothful, lazy guy, but that's really what the answer is, right? Can we be that way spiritually? And that's because we're giving preference to other things rather than pursuing these spiritual things. He says, I want you to be actually fervent. That means boiling over, like a pot boiling. That's the word where this comes from, the idea of something boiling over. You're excited and you're passionate in spirit. And that's when things get done, okay? And notice when you do all those things, what does it say you're doing? The last three. Isn't that amazing? When I give preference to you, when I'm fervent in spirit, and I'm really anxious to get it busy, that's how I actually serve the Lord. And when you look at that, I'm serving not you. Yes, I am, but I'm serving who? Jesus, okay? Now let me talk about this word servant, then I'll talk about it. Because in America, we don't like this word servant because it's the word for slave in the New Testament. And it's the one that serves as a slave, having all personal ownership rights assigned to the owner, figuratively, to willingly give over the prerogative to this, be self-governed. In other words, it's no longer my will, but Jesus, it's your will. Oh, where did we hear that? Jesus said that to his Father, that he could become a servant or slave to God. And that's what it's talking about here. And not a slave like the blacks were captured and beat and sold. This is a willingly, I'm giving myself over to you to be your servant. because of what you've done for me. And I know I'm going to be glorified as your son someday. Yes.
I'm just trying to think of what I was gonna say now.
That's all right. Yes, Heather.
There's a song, I don't know if it's in the supplemental that Mariana's been working on. I think it's in the new songbook though. It's Pierce My Ear.
Yeah.
And it's Pierce My Ear, O Lord my God, take me to
Yeah.
the door this day. And it's
Yeah.
a reference to,
Well, in their day, you could become a servant in many ways, but one of the ways is you could sell yourself into servanthood because you owed money or you just wanted to be taken care of, because slaves were taken care of better than some of the poor people. But often when you worked off your debt, a servant would say, you know, I'm free from you. I can walk, but I love you so much in this family. I voluntarily will become your slave for the rest of life, and you'll pierce my ear with a hole, and it will show with an all, yes, and it'll show that I have willingly given myself to service to you for the rest of my life. That's where that song comes from. It's a biblical concept, and there's actually Old Testament language about it, but that's what we're doing in our heart. That's what, That's what we're doing. We're saying, Lord, I'm yours. I'm yours because of what you did for me. That's right. Yeah. Over here first, then you, Clinton.
I remembered what it was now, Jack.
Okay, good. Clinton? I'm glad you remembered. Yeah, I just played with you.
I was thinking of what Jesus did when he washed their feet, and he did that, and he says, do you likewise?
Yes.
And showing the service that needed to be done. If you can have Jesus, our Lord and our King,
Yes.
wash your feet,
Yes.
and knowing full well that you were, while still in your
Yeah.
sins, he died for you. I mean, what better
Yeah.
example of
Oh.
service is there?
It is true. The greater serving the lesser. Yeah. Clinton.
Your daughter and me were at work one day, and we were talking about this very scripture. She said, what is an awl? I said, hey,
Oh.
I'll go in the truck and get one.
Yeah. It's a saint. You could use them for leather punches too, and they make holes. Right.
Through real thick leather so you can get the thread through it.
And I know it's not as sensitive ear, but wouldn't that be quite an act of,
They put it up against the post.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to put it up against something. So, yeah, right. So, you know, when you think about it, I just want you to stop and think real quickly. Jesus is in heaven. He's King of Kings, Lord of Lords. We understand that. But if he was on this earth, what would he be doing?
Seeking and saving the lost.
He'd still be serving.
Yes.
Would he be washing people's feet still?
Yes.
Figuratively or literally?
Yes.
He'd be serving. He says, I'm in heaven now. I'm your Lord. I've saved you. And you said, you confessed your faith in me. You confess that I believe that you are Lord and Christ. Now he's asking us, you do for me what I would be doing if I was down there. Because I'm counting on you to do it for me. And that's how you lay up treasures in heaven. See what I'm saying? So it's not a demeaning thing. This is a glorious thing to do, to serve others. Because the only thing that really matters is getting people to heaven. Everything else really doesn't matter in the big picture, does it? This is a transformed life where we renew our minds, right? We don't think like we used to. People go, you're different. Yeah, I hope so. Thank you. Now that you've become one of those Christian people, you're different. Well, thank you. It's a transformed life. There's really joy first time, okay? Any questions about any of that? Okay, good. We're going to get through this. Then I just love this, a bunch of things. Rejoice in hope. We have a great hope, don't we? It's interesting. The word hope is this word. See it there in the Greek with the X. That's all I want you to see. Look at the word for joy. It's the same root word. And guess what the next word is? Anyone going to guess? Grace. God's grace is the same root word which we get joy from, which we get rejoice from. So when God has graced us, given us what we didn't deserve, doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves, does that cause us to have joy? Yes. And when we have joy, what do? We rejoice verbally. And that's what he's saying here. Just rejoice in this great hope, because why would I do all this serving? Because you got this great glory waiting for you. That's your goal. That's what you're waiting for, and it just makes everything like, who cares? Insignificant anymore. I mean, yes, we have concerns. I don't want to have bad health. I get that and all that. But when we think this way, these things become not as bad as we thought. All right? I don't know how an atheist deals with death and dying. I don't know how. I read things where they do, and there's such a loss. And it's sad. That's what it is. It's sad. Persevere means to abide under tribulation. Tribulation is pressure, and it's actually from a word when they torture people by putting heavy stones on their chest so they couldn't breathe. Have you ever been in life under tribulation, you just feel like you couldn't breathe? The stress. This is stress not from daily living, although it might include that, but it's stress for being a Christian, because the world is what? Putting pressure on you. Endure. Did Jesus have to endure?
Yes.
Oh, man. He knows what stress is like, that kind of pressure. But remember, he didn't say anything in return. He was silent in front of his accusers. And then when people did say something evil, he blessed them. That's coming up next. Yes?
For me, part of tribulation has been, you can feel that pressure as a Christian one day, but then you be around other Christians that are completely oblivious to that pressure. And then feeling somewhat isolated
Yeah.
in that experience.
That's interesting. I don't know if you all heard that. And I'd just say it's probably because they have pressures in other areas that you can't relate to, just like they can't relate to yours. Does that make sense? And some people have an easier walk. And that's the potter and the clay. And say, well, why me? Don't you complain about God who made you the way you are. Maybe you're going to have a rougher life, but I got greater things for you because I'm molding you. And sometimes it's the stress of life that makes you the person you are that I can use you later. And the people that got it easy and soft, I'll really never be able to use very well because they're easy and soft. I'm speaking in generalities. Yes, Heather.
Doesn't it say in 1st or 2nd Timothy that all those who wish to live godly in this life will be persecuted?
Will be. Will be.
If you're not living godly and you're not feeling
Yeah.
any kind of stress of any kind or pushback
Yeah.
from the world, should you not look at yourself?
That's
and
right.
wonder if you look too much like the world?
And that's true. Now, granted, the persecution stress we receive in America is not like they received in their day. They actually died. And it's not like Christians receive around the world today. We've got it easy compared to people in Japan and or China, where you go to jail and all that for it. Right, for now. But yes, there is. We should be feeling some, and that's okay, because Jesus got it. It's all right. And then how do you continue to rejoice in hope and persevere in your trials? Be devoted to. No, we know that, but why does Paul have to say it? Because he's just devoted. Talk to God. If you've got to say something about the government, talk to God about it. If you've got to say something about your brother or sister that you're having problems with, don't say it to them or to someone else. That's called what? Gossip. Say it to who? Talk to God, or else talk to that person, right? Be devoted in prayer. Pray for those people. That's how we serve them too, right? Just all constantly praying. So I'm not going to embarrass Heather, but I called up my friend in Monroe. First question, how's Heather? I talked to a guy in Florida. First question, how's Heather? People are praying all around when they know about it for one another. That's being devoted to God in prayer. And I know, Teresa, we constantly were praying for you when you were in the hospital. How long, many days was that?
72.
90. Can you believe that? It's all about trials, but people were praying and praying and praying and devoted to prayer. All right? So, contributing to the needs of saints, that's the word koinonia, fellowship. In their day, people were losing their jobs and their homes, so there was a great need to actually help support people financially with food and shelter. We see that in Book of Acts. Remember, people that are having extra property, selling it and giving it to the apostles so it'd be distributed to the saints who had a need. They took care of each other, And you say, why would I do that? Because God did it for you, right? See, always the pushback is going to be answered. So practice hospitality. You ever heard of the word xenophobia? What is that?
A phobia about Xena.
Come on, somebody got to help me on this one. Xenophobia? What is phobia? What is xeno? Xeno. Huh? Foreigners. And people that say, when you say, well, we want to control the borders, oh, you're just a xenophobias. You just don't like foreigners. You hate them. It's another label. Why I say all that, because guess what this word is? The word philoxenia. See it there? Pheno, or phileo means what? And xeno is the same word, it's strangers. So xenophobia is stranger fear, but this one is love of what? Strangers. And he wants us to have what? Practice hospitality. That doesn't mean just have people for dinner, but when they're strangers who are Christians, and maybe they had to leave their community because they're being persecuted, you don't know them, but you shelter them and feed them until they get back on their feet. That's hospitality in the New Testament. Hospitality today is what? Having someone over for a meal. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong, but it goes much deeper than that. There was a great need for it then. And it was actually having people live with you for a while. That's hospitality in their day. Remember, Hebrews says, be hospitable to one another, because some have entertained angels without even knowing it. That means they had them in their homes and stayed with them. They didn't know, oh, that's an angel. I hope I act like an angel so people think, maybe Jack was an angel. But it usually doesn't work that way. All right, so now we're going to look at transformed life. We talked about to one another. Now how are we going to relate to the world? Unbelievers. Okay, you ready for this one? Okay. Let's read it and we'll talk about it. So we're in verse 14. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and curse not. You rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind towards one another. And don't be haughty in mind, but associate with the lowly. Do not be wise in your own estimation. This is the second time we've heard that, right, in this chapter. So there must be a problem with sometimes the Christians thinking they're all that. They're better than others. And God forbid we ever should think that. Verse 17, never pay back evil for evil to anyone. So this would include believers and non-believers, right? Anyone. Respect what is right in the sight of all men. If possible, so far it depends on you, be at peace with, second time all men is used here, right? Verse 19, never take your own revenge, beloved, but leave room for the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Verse 20, but if your enemy is hungry, feed him. And if he is thirsty, give him a drink. For in doing so, you're going to heap burning coals upon his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is such a beautiful statement. You should put it on our overcome evil with goodness. All right, so it's obviously talking about people of the world. And sometimes, especially if you happen to die for your faith, or you saw your family members get persecuted, you'd want to pay them back, right? You want justice. So he's going to give us some instructions about how to deal with that, okay? So let's look at them just individually. First of all, bless those who persecute you. Bless means to speak well of. And that's generally what it means. It's like the word eulogy. Eulogize, when someone at a funeral, you speak well of them. Even though they were terrible people, when you go to the funeral, you think, man, those are the greatest people that ever walked on this earth. Because you only say what? Nice things. That's appropriate, right? That's what it means. Now, why would you say something nice about someone that's giving you a hard time and making your life as miserable?
It might soften them up.
might soften them up. What? What'd you say? Because a forgiving heart, Jeff.
Because if we want to manifest ourselves into the character of Jesus, we have to speak goodness to become like him.
That's what Jesus did himself. Might reach them, soften their heart. Is what? Yes. And this is because they're used to people retaliating, and when you just totally turn the tables because you're a transformed person, and you do something nice when they did something bad to you, one, God notices it. Second of all, it could win their soul. All right? So, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Do you like condemn them? Well, may God damn that person to hell, you know? Jesus said this, bless those who curse you and pray for those who abuse you. Now, let's be honest. On the surface, is that hard on the first reading? Yeah, it's hard. But when we have a transformed mind and we think on, God did for us, because did we curse God, some of us in our lives? Did we? Were we enemies of God? Romans 5 said that, right? And yet, what did he do? He blessed us. He prayed for us. And so that's what brought us to him. And he won our hearts by his grace. And if we want to soften and win people's hearts to the Lord, we have to live the same way towards them. Jeff.
If we do curse, there's the potential of becoming that person that we're hating.
Thank you.
And my second thought of this is, if our mark is Christ, even if there is cursing and abuse from that person, we're trying to look past that to the mark to be like Christ, not like the person
That's right. Because everyone, I believe, is redeemable to a point. And I'm glad you said that, because when we respond, and usually we respond harsher than they treated us, right? We're sinking to their level even lower. And do you want to fall to that evilness yourself? No, abhor evil and cling to that which is good. And the good thing to do is what? If you can't say anything, don't say anything at all. If you can't say it nice. But you could say, you know, it really hurts with Jim, but I'm praying for you. That might make it matter, but you can say that. Yes, Ann.
Well, I was just thinking that those are tactics of Satan.
To get you to fight back?
Well, what they're doing, too.
Tactics. Oh, Satan is using them to attack you. Yeah. So take it out on Satan, not the person. You're right. Yes.
I'm assuming when you're talking about all this not taking things out, not from a personal level, but surely government has a right to take out things, for example.
Thank you. Okay. We want to differentiate between personal relationships and our actions separate from government, who is a servant of God to punish evil. That's chapter 13. Because a lot of people say, oh, well, therefore you can't practice imprisonment and all that. No, the government has a total different role. This is never our role as individuals. So the government can incarcerate people, all right? That'll be chapter 13. And they're God's ministers, his servants, to punish the evil and reward the good. So there's order in society, but don't you do that. That's not your job. So I'm glad you said that, all right? So when we look at this, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And again, I don't think this is just with Christians. This is with everyone. How can you win someone's heart is if they've lost a loved one, or they're really, weep is what the word here is when Peter went out and wept bitterly. Remember, after he denied the Lord? It's really an emotional outbreak. If you can bring yourself to commiserate and have empathy with someone in the world, to weep with them, they're going to go, wow, this Christian's not that bad guy after all. You know what I'm saying? It can. And it's genuine love. Because you realize, as you said, Ann, it's Satan that's got a hold of them, and we just want to love them like Christ loved us. Then rejoice with them. Just like, that's great, all right? So, be of the same mind towards one another. And I like this. Don't be haughty mind. In other words, think I'm above them or better than them. Because Christians can get this way, and it's called self-righteousness. Because they look at the people in the world, well, man, that's just disgusting. You have one thing to do with them, you look down upon them. And you should be saying, God forbid, if it wasn't for the grace of God, that would be me. Because that was us, right? But that's a real problem with Christians. Sometimes they become self-righteous and haughty, and they think they're better than people in the world. No, you were just like them, and it's only because of God's grace you're not. You show the same grace to them. And God forbid anyone ever should be rude or think they're better than someone else in this world, because that's not Christianity. That's religion, right? So, but associate with the lowly. This doesn't mean lowly, it's not necessarily financially lowly, lower class people maybe more, or people that are just less than unfortunate, whatever. There's no class system in Christianity, that's all I'm saying. Because remember, who's the woman that washed Jesus' feet with her tears? She was a prostitute. And everyone sitting around said, man, if he knew who that woman was, he would never let her do that. And Jesus come back and said, okay, Simon, let's talk about this. Who do you think loves more? The one who's been forgiven a little or who's been forgiven a lot? And he said, this woman whose sins are many, she hadn't stopped kissing me since I walked in here, and you've not even washed my feet yourself. You know, she loves a lot because she's been what? Forgiven a whole bunch. Yeah. So, yes.
I have a neighbor, very, very nice guy, except every other word.
Yeah.
He was raised Jehovah's Witness,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to get to him.
Well, talk to Julie, because she'll give you good pointers on how to bring it up nicely. Say, you know, John, I really like you. And say that. Be vulnerable and tell him I like. But man, it just kind of bothers me when I hear you swearing all the time, especially when you talk about my God. You can say it nicely when you have opportunity and do that. Yeah. But start it with something nice. And end it with something nice. Yeah, seriously. Huh?
People don't even realize that.
Oh, they're doing it, right.
They don't even know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I just had that conversation
Yeah.
with a guy the other day, because he says it
Yeah.
all the time.
They don't even realize it.
Said something to him about it a couple times, and he says, what do you mean?
Okay, I got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. I'm cutting you off. I'm sorry. Because Mariano say, Jack, we're done at 15 after, okay? So let's look at this, because I want you to see this. Never take your own revenge. Never pay back evil for evil. Never means what? Never. I know when we were kids we did that, and sometimes adults, payback. Payback is revenge. It's giving them what they deserve, because they did this, and justice demands they get it back. Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, right? And God's a God of justice. He understands that. But he says, when it comes to payback, it's never your job. It just makes it worse. And going back to what Jeff said earlier, it makes you, put you on their level and actually sinks you below. Because when you're in a fight and someone pushes you, what do? Harder than they push you. Do you ever give equal pushback? No, we always elevate it, and pretty soon there's a fist, and when all they did was push, then you have a brawl. And that's because what? You took justice or vengeance into your own hands. It's God's job. So let's read this. We have time. Go ahead.
That's being prideful, right?
It is pride, because we are hurt. But think of Jesus. He was slapped and spit on and mocked. He could have righteously. And if he can do it, I can do it. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to get away with anything. So never pick evil for evil to anyone. Respect what is right in the sight of all men. If it's possible, if it depends upon you, be at peace with who? Now, sometimes they won't let you have peace, but it's never going to be your fault, because you're always going to extend the olive branch. Always. Always. Now, how are you going to do that? Okay? He says here, first of all, we never have the right to pay back people with that. We never have that right. Never. And some people, well, that's my right because they did me wrong. No, it's not your right as a Christian. Never, never, ever. You clear with that? Okay. When we do, we're going to sink to the level, and that's because payback belongs to who? It's his job. Now, when the collection plate comes by, have any of you ever taken money out of the collection plate and put it in your pocket?
Never.
Would you ever do that?
No.
Why?
Because it's wrong.
And why? Whose money is that? It's not your money, it's God's money. And that's God's job to pay people back. Why are you taking his job on your own?
That's right.
It's like stealing out of the cookie jar. That's his job, not yours. Never, ever, ever.
Good illustration.
All right? It's his. Vengeance belongs to God, he says. Heather?
It says, and I'm just noticing this now, and maybe it doesn't matter, but don't pay back with evil. So you're basically.
No, it says never pay back evil for evil. They did evil to you, and you're.
I'm just reading your highlighted
Yeah.
part too, pay back with evil, but yeah, never pay back evil
Right.
with evil. So basically, you're giving evil back. Of course, Christians aren't supposed to give evil back, but what about, do you want to equate that with justice or giving them what they're due?
No, you're never going to do that. That's what we're talking about. We're not giving them what they do because that's whose job? That's God's job. Well, no, in the Old Testament, if you plucked someone's eye out, you had to lose your eye. That was the idea. Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, life for life. We don't execute justice here.
You're essentially being evil if you do that.
Well, actually, that's right. All right? Okay, I'm sorry I'm going to finish this, so hang on. You guys don't mind, do you? No. All right, good. Now, verse 19. Never take your own vengeance, but leave room for the wrath of God. In other words, he'll take care of it in his time and his way, right? When it says leave room, don't you do it for him because you're exiting him out of the job, all right? And he will always do a better job than you will. You can look, we can give a lot of examples of that. He can do it a lot better. And that's because it says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will what? You can count on God and trust God. He will make everything right in the end, all right? He promises to repay, doesn't he? So we don't have to worry about it. He will do a better job, and he'll do it in his time. Now, here's what you do, and I have to finish this, so I'm sorry, Mario, I'm going over a little bit. If your enemy's hungry, rather than pay him back with the same thing he did to you, what do? You do something nice. If he's hungry, what should you do? Feed him. If he's thirsty, what? Give him a drink. And doing so, you're going to heap burning coals on his head. And this is one we want to talk about and we'll close. Because it said, never pay evil for evil. Now, if you come along and I put burning coals on your head, is that good or evil? So how do we make sense of this? And I've heard a lot of explanations in the past, but I'm going to give you the right one, okay? All right, you with me? Proverbs says this, and he's quoting Proverbs. If your enemy's hungry, give him food, thirsty, give him water, and you'll heap burning coals on your head. And the Lord's going to what? You do nice, he'll reward you, but repay him. But he's not talking about this making him more miserable by doing something nice. Because some people, that'll make him feel guilty and he'll just feel terrible and he'll burn inside. That's not what it's talking about. Since this is in the Old Testament, there's an Oriental custom back then we have to understand. Because how did they heat their homes back in the day? With fire. And the hardest thing to do is to get a fire started. They didn't have torches or matches or anything like that or Bic lighters. They'd have to keep things burning constantly, and then they use those coals to start their next fire to cook and heat the house with. Now, if your coal went out, they had these fire pans, and they carry everything on their heads. They do that today in a lot of places like India and Africa. They carry everything on their head. You go out to get some more coal and to get some coals burning, and custom was when you walk by someone's window, they'd see you and they'd drop some burning coals in your pan, so you didn't have to worry about starting your own fire. And was that a blessing or a curse? Thank you. And so people would just do that, and you come back and you got a fire going. Wouldn't that be nice? That's the society, how they took care of each other. Now, would you do that for your enemy? On first blush, no way. But he says, no. We're thinking like the Lord thinks, transform minds. And rather than doing evil, we're going to bless them by putting burning coals in their... How are we going to do that? By fooding. This is a figure of speech to show how we're going to be nice to them and win their heart rather than being mean. Isn't that beautiful? And putting coals is a blessing in their day on their head, because that's how they'd carry me. So it's not this, it's this right here. That's my AI picture that generated, right? They're happy because, oh, look, I went out and everyone gave me their fire, so I don't have to do it, and I can heat my house. That's how you treat who? Your friends? Yes. And that's how you treat who? Your enemies. And we'll finish right here. So don't be overcome by evil. Is it easy to be overcome by evil? Lose sleep? Get upset? Get anxious? No, that's Satan trying to take you over. You overcome evil. How do you fight evil? With goodness. Not just thinking good, but actually doing good things. All right, that's our class. Thank you. Oh, guess what? Overcome means Nike. The word Nike, we get victory from Nike shoes. It's this Greek word. You're going to have victory over evil by doing what?